loved ones. Management 3130. This video is for session 19. If we were together, it would be 16 July 2020. I have one admin thing to share with you, and that is that the next class is a presentation that I'm making to you on leadership. And it's a video that I recorded a couple of months ago. I recorded in the spring semester, and of course, so it's on channel. But when you go to Folio, under PowerPoint presentations, under that module, when you open that up, you'll see the link. You'll see the specific name of the video that's on channel. So just wanted to point that out, that under PowerPoint presentations on Folio, there's a link that'll take you to the leadership presentation. So today is a discussion of chapter 13. It's groups and teams, and it's big stuff. Really is profoundly important in my view. However, before I get there, I need to share with you one of my many shortcomings. Yes, it turns out that for a lot of years, I've been sponsored by Carhartt. You know, the people that make workwear, blue jeans, t-shirts, stuff like that. My sponsorship deal is curious. Here's how it works. I give them $28. They give me a pair of blue jeans. And then I walk around advertising their company on my butt. That's my sponsorship deal with Carhartt. I really think that somehow I need to get better at negotiating. So let me go down to chapter 13, groups and teams. I'm on 505, the classic definition of a group: two or more people who interact socially. Sadly, I don't think we're a group. There's no social interaction. We communicate via email. I post videos on YouTube. So we have zero social interaction. And that makes me sad. But you and I, don't meet the definition of a group. Two or more people who interact socially. So what if we were together on campus? Or what if I bumped into you at the Daily Grind, a coffee shop that I like to patronize on Zetterauer? What if we were anywhere and we interacted socially? That's what a group is. Two or more people who interact socially. They could be roommates, they could be lunch partners, they could be co-workers, but that's what a group is. Two or more people who interact socially. And it's heartbreaking to me that we don't get any social interaction. We get distance, don't we? Boo. Now, a team is defined as having three pieces. I'm going to put it on the board because I really think that it's important that I do that. This comes from Gary Ugel's definition of a team. Ugel is a preeminent leadership scholar. And here's how Gary Ugel defines a team. Gary Ugel says that leadership is a process in which an individual, that would be the leader, influences a group of collaborators, that would be the team members, to accomplish some group task. That's the definition of leadership. And I get it, if I turned you loose on Google Scholar, y'all could come up with 4.9 million definitions of leadership. None of them would be superior to what Gary Ugel has given us. Leadership is a process in which an individual intentionally influences a group of collaborators to accomplish a group task. So the thing that, now if you did not have the task, would you have people interacting? You would. But that's the point of a team. A team has a common purpose. Heck yeah. That's what makes a group a team. There's some shared purpose. And that is so fundamental, it's so simple, but there you have it. So now, we want to talk about common types of teams, and these are generally the sorts of teams that you would find in a work setting, in an organizational setting. I'm on 507, and what the authors talk about is the first type of team that they discuss is a work team. And that simply means that you and I work together on an ongoing basis. We have some, I don't want to say necessarily repetitive, but we certainly have recurring responsibilities. So a work team is relatively permanent. It has life, it's ongoing. We would contrast that with a project team that has a finite life. What if I were put on some sort of project team? When the project is done, we celebrate and we gracefully disband the team and go into something else. So project teams are not ongoing. They may last for a couple of years, or they may last for a few weeks, I don't know. But my point is, project teams have a finite life. They have a discrete beginning and a discrete end. They don't have this ongoing relationship that a work team would have. Cross-functional teams are pretty powerful. I've been on a bunch of them, and I'm pretty sure you will be too. A cross-functional team is a team made up, of contributors, people from different functional areas of an organization. Let's pretend that you and I, all of us, all 50, 60 of us, work for a company that's a global auto manufacturer. We work for Ford or General Motors or Toyota or BMW. Don't really care. But we all work for a global auto manufacturer, and we're scattered all across the organization. So let's assume that the company says, we want to roll out a new product. And right now, I don't care if it's a new truck, a new crossover, a new sport utility, a performance sedan, it doesn't matter. Our big bosses have decided they want to roll out a new product. They want to add something to our product line. So I can promise you, the first thing that will happen is that we will be put on a cross-functional team. And I may come from accounting, and you may come from design engineering or production or marketing or finance or whatever, because we all have different skills. We can all contribute. And we may spend a great deal of time saying, okay, here's the target on the wall. They want us to launch a new crossover, a new sport utility, a new performance sedan. That's the target on the wall. Let's start. Let's build on the skills and the competencies of our marketing people. Let's start by making some clear assessment for what's out there. What are the competing platforms in that segment? And what do these potential purchasers who occupy that segment want? Is there stuff there, but it disappoints them? I don't yet know, because we don't know what they want. We also, at this earliest stage, don't know what's out there. We don't know what other vehicles compete in that segment. So the first thing we're going to start with is sort of environmental assessment, right? So what if we decide that what the market really values would be a new crossover sedan, and we're going to put in some blend of luxury and performance or whatever. So we have those sort of fuzzy goals. So now we're going to talk with people who are stylists, people who are design engineers. Give us some workups, give us some clay models, give us some drawings, give us some prototypes, give us an idea. And then let's take that back to these same people who might buy it, and if they go, oh, yuck, that thing is uglier than homemade soap. If you didn't grow up on a farm, I don't think you'd appreciate that as much as I do. But my point is, you see that this thing is sequential. We have to go through this product development in stages, but it's a cross-functional team. And the accountants are going to keep track of product costs, and the engineers are going to do the design function, and the production people are going to bang out some early products that we can look at or critique or get some experience with. The finance people are going to find resources. Legal affairs is going to make sure that we comply with the EPA and all those other communist federal agencies. So the point is, a cross-functional team draws people from different members, different places in the organization. We could easily put together a cross-functional team in the College of Business, couldn't we? That's what we have a standing committee at the college level called Development, Promotion, and Tenure. That is a cross-functional team. There's one representative from each of the departments, and then there's a department chair, and that's it. And I think we have 6 or 7 departments. So my point is, and the same would be true with curriculum or strategic planning or any other committee. You draw people from different areas so that you get this wonderful blended perspective. We'll talk just a little bit later today about the differences between a team that's got homogeneity and heterogeneity. And we'll talk about the circumstances under which either of those would be a good choice. So we have cross-functional teams. There's also something that's called a self-managed team. Those things don't exist very much because very few organizations are going to give people at low levels of the organization decision-making authority. They're going to give them marching orders. So very few teams are self-managed. Very few team leaders get to pick the people on the team. Very few team leaders get to pick varying levels of compensation. The team lead gets to assign tasks, agreed? But there's not a great deal of decision-making authority. So self-managed teams, I don't know why we even talk about them because they're relatively rare. And then virtual teams, oh my goodness, those rascals are everywhere. I'm on some right now, right? Aren't we, all of us, because of social distancing? I despise that term and the concept. I'm a hugger and a handshaker. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of social distancing. I will not be wearing a body condom when the fall semester starts. So, virtual teams are typically separated by both time and distance, different time zones, and the team members are in different places. And of course, their link is all digital, it's all electronic. People don't get on conference calls, people get on Zoom, people have chats, that sort of a thing. But my point is that all sharing of all information is a digital exchange, sometimes in real time, sometimes it's synchronous, and sometimes it's asynchronous. The problem with virtual teams, and you will be on a bunch of them, I'm on some now. The problem with all virtual teams is it's enormously difficult to build a cohesive team. Generally speaking, people don't look forward to it, people don't care, they don't value their membership in the team. It's hard to build trust, it's hard to build commitment, because we're scattered all over the nation or the world. We may be in different time zones, we may speak different languages, we may be in different countries. But virtual teams present an enormous challenge, and yet a great deal of work is carried out by virtual teams. But I want you to understand that if you have to form one, if you have to lead one, or if you're just a member of one, it's very difficult for anyone to build cohesion. Cohesion, in the context of teams, essentially says that membership in the team matters to me so much. I mean, I really value this membership in the team, that I'm going to subordinate self-interest. I want to be a member of this team. I want to contribute. I don't want to be thrown off of it or dumped or purged. So that means I'm going to subordinate self. I'm going to put the needs of the team, the collective needs, ahead of my own. And cohesion is a really good thing if it's not done in the extreme. So what I'm saying is, to have a cohesive team is wonderful. And it's extremely difficult to build cohesiveness when you're separated by time and distance, and sometimes language and customs. So virtual teams are everywhere. They're never going to go away. I remember that from being at Starfleet Academy. I remember that too. But again, I want you to know that they're common, but they're challenging. They really are. So now I'm on 510. And there's a stage model. I forgot the guy that developed this, Turnley or something like that. And it's, forgive me, I should be smarter. I should be able to make that attribution. But some bright scholar developed this stage model of teams. And the argument is that teams go through 5, count them, 5 stages. And here's the place where my eyes roll. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. It's, you know, it's fun to dance to. It really is. I don't know if you remember, but I minored in interpretive dance in college. Got terrible grades, terrible M's, N's, just terrible grades. So at the first stage, forming, the fundamental question is why? What precisely is our mission? What are we being asked to do? So the forming stage sort of revolves around answering that question. What are we being asked to do? The storming piece talks about team dynamics. Who will be the team lead? Are there shared roles there? What are other roles in the team? Are some people responsible for production, design, administration, scheduling, getting resources? Who's the team lead, and what are the roles that other team members assume? Those things have to be determined. So that's fun, but it's messy because we're talking precisely about team dynamics, all this complex interaction by the team members. Norming, oh dear. Again, forgive me, I wish I could recall his name. But the man who crafted this stage model of team building talks about the norming stage as doing 2 things. conflict resolution and relationship building. Wow. There will always be conflict. In fact, I think we talk about it later in this chapter. There will always be conflict. We will disagree on what should be done, how best to do it, what resources are needed, whom should we assign to it, what are the good outcomes, how do we evaluate that. So there's almost always going to be conflict, and there has to be some way to resolve that. And there are all sorts of very good and legitimate ways to resolve conflicts, and there are some that are really suboptimal, some that are not good. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the performing piece. We do the thing. We were charged with some responsibility. We have formed a team. We have people who have taken on leadership roles, people who have taken on other roles. We have a sense of direction. We built relationships. We've resolved conflicts. Now, do it. It's time to do the thing. Whatever it was that we were put together to do. That's the performing stage. And then the authors talk about the adjourn stage. You disband the team, and what's next? And they talk about rituals, mock funerals and stuff like that. I actually brought something to this presentation that I want to share with you, because this is part of the adjournment process. This is the last of the 5 stages in this stage model of teams. What I have in my hand is a brandy snifter. This is a pewter mug, and it is purpose-built to be a brandy snifter. And let me tell you how this mug is representative of one of the rituals in this adjournment part of the thing. When I returned from Vietnam, I was assigned to the U.S. Army Infantry School at Fort Benning for about 1.5 years to be a resident instructor. And my specific role was with land navigation. We taught soldiers how to navigate. And this was way before GPS and Spotify. Yes, way before. So we had a ritual every month of every year. We had, at the end of the month, what was called a hail and farewell party. And I don't remember how many people were on the team, maybe 25 or 30 members as a general statement, but there's always fluidity, isn't there? People are leaving for other assignments and new members are joining. So that some people could retire, some people could separate from active duty. So there's a great deal of fluidity in most teams, a lot of change in the membership. So every month we would gather and have this hail and farewell party. And the hail part of it, the greeting new members, was introductions, a lot of handshaking, a lot of welcoming, a lot of offers to be supportive and helpful and whatever their needs were because they were just joining us. But as part of the farewell, every time somebody left a team, now when I left, it was to leave active, I voluntarily separated from active duty. Some people would get what is called a PCS, a permanent change of station. They would go to their next duty station, whether it's a school or a unit or a war zone, like Chicago or Baltimore or someplace like that. But this brandy snifter, every one of us that left the team got a pewter mug just like this. I know you can't see it, I can just barely read it. But it's inscribed, there's some scroll work on the mug, and it says, Captain William I. Norton. The second line says Land Navigation Committee, and then my dates of service with that unit, December 70 to March of 72. So that is inscribed in this brandy snifter. And in our ritual, in this hail and farewell, this was a common cup. We filled it with brandy, and every soldier in the room took a sip. We passed the cup precisely as Jesus did at the Last Supper. That was a pretty important ritual for us. Now, today, the notion that you would drink out of a cup that 25 other people did probably makes you scream and leave the room, and that's okay. Men in war zones have very different standards and expectations. So my point is that this brandy snifter was a gift. But the significance of the gift was that it was a shared cup. We filled it with brandy, we get all liquored up, right? Fill it with brandy, everyone takes a sip and passes it to the next soldier in line. Pretty darn cool. But I'm just simply talking about what a ritual as part of adjournment when the team disbands. Where do we go next? What is our next task? So again, I thought that might be fun. That will not be on the final. Whoa, 1.5.13 now. Collaboration. My little heart is just thumping. Oh dear. I want to tell you something that I think may simplify this topic of collaboration. I can't think of anything more important in any organizational setting anywhere on the planet. I don't care what your role is, what the organization is, what the industry, doesn't matter. I can't think of anything more important in an organizational setting than your ability to behave collaboratively with coworkers. I can't think of anything more important. I mean that. That's the top of the mountain. That's the single most important skill that you can develop, is the ability to work collaboratively. Now, the reason that's such a big deal, and this is my modest contribution, if you work collaboratively, the focus is on we. What is it that we are doing? What is our shared objective? That's right, we bad. What is the shared purpose that we have? The focus is not on me. You're not important. You're a member of an organization. You can't do much alone. Together, y'all are powerful. You can accomplish great things. If you simply consider that innocent difference, the focus is not on me, the focus is on we. We are going to do this together. That is sort of the heartbeat of collaborative decision making. And I mean that so sincerely. I want to tell you about an experience I had in Vietnam, because I just fell into this. I don't know. When I became the reconnaissance platoon leader for Fox Force, I was 21 years old. I'd had plenty of formal training in the military, but I was a baby. 21 years old, and I'm leading men in combat. Oh dear, didn't have a college degree yet. I've been in the Army about maybe 20 months, I guess. This was my first time in a war zone, my first time in a battle space. So it's not like I have vast experience. I'm a 21-year-old kid. And on a regular basis, we would get a mission from the battalion, S3, the operations folks, and they would say, you know, we're going to pick up your recon platoon at whatever, 1400 hours, 2 o'clock in the afternoon at an LZ, and they'd give us a place on the ground, and we're going to move you somewhere else, and there's suspected enemy activity in there. Go in there and organize a dance party. We didn't do that. So my point is, once I got a mission from battalion, I'd get my guys in what's sort of like a campfire setting, except we didn't do s'mores or things like that. We were actually in a war zone. And I would give them what would essentially be a field order. If we were back in the rear area, it would have been a full-scale operations order. We would have talked about the task, resources, other units in the battle space, what our exit plan is, what are we going to do if we need a ready reaction force, what if we need reinforcements or extraction. But that's in the rear when you have time to plan. And typically, a small unit leader is given about 96 hours. She or he is given about 4 full days to develop an operations order. Because oftentimes, you have to push it up the chain of command to get approval for resources. And absolutely, you have to push it down to your soldiers so that everybody understands the commander's intent, what we have for resources, what we're facing, what we have to accomplish. So an operations order is a relatively big deal, but it can only be developed if you have about 4 days to plan for the operation. And that happens a lot, but if you're in the bush, if you're in the field, there's going to be some sort of a shift in the tactical situation, and your battalion operations people are going to say, we've got some fresh intel, we saw dinks on a trail network or a bunker complex or whatever they saw. So I would give my guys a field order, just a simple 5-paragraph field order. And it's kind of, this won't surprise you, what, when, who, where, and how. That's pretty much what a 5-paragraph field order is. But here's my point. I don't know where this wisdom came from. I can only hope that it's an authentic form of humility, but that's my hope. That's not my declaration. I would say, here's our task, here are the resources, here's the enemy force we're facing, here's what we have to accomplish, the what, why, when, where, and how, and then, before I took another breath, I would say, I want to hear from every one of you. Every man in my unit was skilled, experienced, hardened. They were war fighters, and they were damn good ones. I'm pretty new. I want to hear from the guys that have done this a lot. So my point is, I laid out my field order, what I thought we should do, and then I immediately invited their perspective.
And the point is, sometimes they would say collectively, this is a group of 24, 25 guys, they would say, we're good, that's a good plan, we understand what we're supposed to do, we got the resources, let's get after it. Not ghetto, but let's get after it. And sometimes 6 or 8 people would say, wrong! Here's why. 6, here's why I think that that's a poor choice, and here's what I think we should do instead. Well, what am I going to do? You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen thoughtfully. I'm going to ask questions so that it's clear to me what they're suggesting. And if it makes sense, I'm going to integrate it. It's going to cause our operations order to shift, to change, to be better adapted to whatever it is we have to do. So my point is that I wasn't trained in collaborative decision making. Nobody said, Norton, go ask your guys before you do anything. You're the officer, you're the boss, you're supposed to tell them. My butt. Stupid, arrogant people do things like that. The world is populated with them. I don't want to be stupid or arrogant. So my point is, as a kid, with no experience, I'd been in country a month, so I had a month's worth of experience as a warfighter, pretty much at the baby stage. Every single time I gave my guys a field order, the next sentence out of my mouth was, how can we improve that? What are your thoughts? I mean, if it's strong, we'll do it. If you see weaknesses, shortcomings, flaws in assumptions, anything, an awareness that I somehow missed, let me know. And this is an open forum discussion. You know, we're not banging off text messages to each other. I'm sorry. We hadn't invented texting back then. Yes, we didn't have mobile phones. We were actually eating, in 1970, we were eating, our meals were called C rations. They were canned, and the cases literally were date stamped. And every one I ever ate, every meal I ever ate in Vietnam in 1970 was manufactured in either 1944 or 1945. They were made in World War II. They had too many of them. You just put them in a warehouse, and they're in cans. They have a shelf life of 250 years, I would imagine. And a lot of it tasted pretty good. Again, won't be on the final. Collaboration is the heart of teamwork. Everybody in your team has got perhaps similar experiences, but different perspectives, different successes, different failures. Everybody can contribute. You, the team lead, need to actively solicit their input. And you need to let that input shape what you're going to do. Now, could people say dumb stuff occasionally? Yes, even on a regular basis. But you're the filter. You're the person who makes the ultimate decision. But I promise you, this notion of engaging in collaborative decision making, I promise you, that is the heartbeat of teamwork. That will propel you to places you can't even imagine. Because if you think about that, if you don't engage in collaborative decision making, people will not have voice. They won't feel respected because you didn't actively solicit their opinion. I can promise you any decision that we make together collaboratively is going to be superior to any decision I make alone. So not only do you have buy-in, you have motivation for your people, but you have better decision quality. Are you kidding me? Why would you do anything other than regularly engage in collaborative decision making? So I want you to understand how important that is. And again, I hope that anecdotal experience was helpful, because as I said, I was 21. I didn't have the benefit of education. I wasn't degreed. I didn't have the benefit of significant experience. Somehow, something welled up in me and it said, these guys are experienced and I need to listen to them. So it's hard to suggest that a 21-year-old kid had any wisdom, but I think on balance, that was a pretty good decision on my part. So now I want to talk about trust. I'm on 514. There is a competent definition in the textbook. I don't dispute that. I want to give you one, though, that I think is, it comes from literature. Sadly, I didn't write down the citation, but this is well understood, and I could provide you with a citation if you asked. The classic definition of trust is your willingness to be vulnerable with some counterparty because you believe that the counterparty will not behave opportunistically. Once again, this is a classic definition of trust. Your willingness to be vulnerable, to expose yourself to a counterparty, someone else, because you believe that the counterparty will not behave opportunistically. She or he will not take advantage of you. because you've revealed these deep secrets or flaws or shortcomings or fears or whatever vulnerability you expose. That's a big deal. Again, the text talks about it being a reciprocal relationship, and I agree, but I think it's incomplete. That's why I wanted to augment it with what I believe is a classic and compelling definition of trust. So, as silly as this sounds, what I'm about to say now is not me giving you a lecture. I don't tell people what to do. I don't even tell my kids what to do. For my children, I have to establish boundaries. Here's where you can't go. But all I ever want to do with them is share perspective. And then I want them to make good decisions. So what I want to share with you is my perspective. And my perspective is that trust, I believe, I am convinced of this, is the foundation of every important relationship that you will ever have. And if you reflect on that, I think you'll see the merit, because if you don't trust me, we're not going to have an important relationship. If I am not worthy of your trust, if you think that I'll behave opportunistically, that I'll take advantage of you, we're not going to have an important relationship. That's even adversarial, isn't it? I'm trying to take advantage of you if I'm this untrustworthy person. I just want you to understand how powerful trust is. I'm convinced that it is the foundation of every important relationship that we will ever have, ever. Because if we don't trust people, it's not likely we're going to have an important relationship. So what do we do in the business context? We don't have an opportunity to develop these important, trusting relationships with individuals. We use contracts, don't we? We reduce our responsibilities and our rights to a writing. We say, on this date that we signed this thing, your signature, my signature, here's what we agreed to. I'll provide services, you pay me X, here's the timeline, here's the remedy if I mess up. And of course, there's a huge body of contract law that protects all the co-makers of the contract if the contract is somehow unclear or non-specific. But my point is, in the absence of trust, we use contracts, don't we? Heck yeah. That's what a prenup is, isn't it? A prenuptial contract is an agreement that it literally negotiates the divorce before you marry. Are you kidding me? Would you marry someone whom you didn't know well enough to trust because you have to sign a contract? People do it, but they tend to be really weirdos, like Britney Spears and people like that. People that are not well balanced. They somehow have acquired wealth, and they want to protect it, and I get that. But again, the concept of a prenup to me is just alien. I can't imagine saying to someone, I treasure you, I will honor you, I will cherish you for the rest of my life, but I don't trust you. So here, sign this, let's negotiate the divorce before we get married. So I mean, I think prenups are pretty goofy, but I know the people that use them and I know why, and it's all sad. It is. I have one friend, I have to tell you this story. My friend James lives and works in Louisville, Kentucky, and he is passionate about racing sports cars. He literally has 5 Mazda RX-7s. Now, he can only keep one on track, but the reason he has 5s is he'll buy them for a few $100 and he'll cannibalize parts. Something will break on the actual race car and he'll cannibalize parts from one of the carcasses that he has at his house. So the guy loves sports cars. So a number of years ago, James met this woman and his heart started singing. And within a couple of months, they were seeing each other exclusively, and about a year and a half later, he proposed to her. And my wife, Elaine, and I were in the steakhouse the same night, a steakhouse in Louisville, when he proposed to the woman who became his fiancée. And so I saw, and I'm about to tell you, but he had to explain it later. They were sitting across each other from a table, and of course, a lot of warmth, you could see it in their eyes and their behaviors and stuff. And he pushed a piece of paper across the table with a pen. And she looked at it and kind of giggled and signed it and pushed it back. I didn't know what happened. So I saw him at a gun shop a couple of weeks later, and I said, did you propose to that precious woman? And he grinned and he said, I did, and she accepted. And I said, well, she's crazy. But what was the piece of paper thing? And he said, I said to her, sweetheart, he said, I love you, but I want to ask you to sign a 1-sentence prenuptial agreement. And of course she said, what? Let me see it. So he pushes the paper across the table to her, and here's what the prenup said. It said, there will never be a minivan in the Dawson family. she smiled and signed it and pushed it back. So there's one prenup that was pretty wholesome. And I hope they had kids, and I hope they had minivans, actually. Kids are wonderful. I have 3, I'd have 3 more if I could. So, I'm on 516 now, and I want to talk to you about the concept of interdependence. And the reason that's significant is not all teams are interdependent. Some teams' activities are simply additive. If you look at a lot of sports teams, if you looked at collegiate athletics here on our campus, whether you look at the golf team or the tennis team, everything that happens there is additive. If you have 4 golfers, whether it's men or women's golf, if there are 4 golfers competing in a tournament, you simply sum up their scores, and that's the team score. I could have a great day, you could have a crappy day, doesn't matter. Your crappy day does not influence my good day does not influence your crappy day. We're not interdependent, we don't rely on each other. However, many teams are interdependent. Interdependence requires that team members do things simultaneously that contributes to that common purpose. Think about our football guys. There's no running back that would ever gain 1 yard from the line of scrimmage. There's no wide receiver or anyone that would receive a single pass if the offensive line didn't block. Now the O-line has to open up holes if it's a run play, and they have to pass block if it's a passing play. But without their activities simultaneously, the quarterback is never going to complete a pass if he's getting creamed in the pocket, and the running back is going to get stacked up at the line of scrimmage if the offensive line doesn't punch out and open up holes for him. So I'm not trying to make this a big sports thing. I just want you to understand that interdependence is common. It means that things happen simultaneously in terms of us accomplishing the shared purpose. And that is common in teams, but not all teams are interdependent. Some teams are simply additive. But this interdependence is usually critical to success. And it's just an important topic. So now I want to talk to you about team composition. I told you we were coming here. I'm on 516 right now. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And I want you to reflect on them. You don't have to answer them, but I want you to reflect on them. That's part of this learning process. Q1. If you're a team leader, did you inherit a team, or did you get to choose its members? Both of those things can and will happen to you in organizational settings. I can promise you, there'll be times that your boss or big boss will say to you, here's a task. Wrap a team around it. You pick 5 or 6 people and then report back to me in 2 weeks with what your early plan is, and then we'll talk regularly. Well, if that's the case, don't you get to choose the team members? Would you pick people with whom you're compatible, people that have good skills, people that are sort of high speed in terms of their diligence? You would. Or you pick the cute girls. I mean, I know how this works. But how many times do you think it's going to happen that you're going to be thrust into a role and there is a team in place? You have no voice whatsoever in choosing a single member. And you'll have some high-speed team members and some people that are high drag, won't you? Won't you? Of course you will. So my first question, when we talk about team composition, is did you inherit a team or did you get to populate it? Did you get to choose the team members? Q2, whether you inherit a team or whether you form the team, do you want the team to have heterogeneity or homogeneity? And by that I mean purely on the basis of skills, experience, education. Are there times that you would want to have 5 accountants on the team, or 5 IT people, or 5 marketing folks? Heck yeah, if you needed their domain competence. But it's more common, so that's a situation that begs for homogeneity. You need people who have the same education, training, life experiences, because they have to attack this great big messy thing and come up with solutions. However, oftentimes what you would value is a team that has heterogeneity, differences in education, life experiences, background, working, whatever the case may be. And I can't know. I can't know because I don't know what the task is in front of you. If you said to me, you remember I talked about that cross-functional team a moment ago? Think about this. What if your big boss says, our engineers and product design people have already come up with a product, you have to launch it. You have to take it to market. I can promise you, I am going to form a team that's got heterogeneity. I'm going to have accountants on the team to keep track of costs. I'm going to have finance people give us resources. I'm going to have marketing people come up with a strategy. I'm going to have production people who read me into what the realities are of making this stuff. I'm going to have people from supply chain management because we have to deal with outbound logistics. I'm going to have people who do after the service sale if it's a product. You see my point? If my responsibility is to launch a new product in some market, I'm going to build a team that's got heterogeneity. But there are times that I would want a team to have homogeneity. And this has nothing to do about race, age, gender, any of those common metrics. When I talk about heterogeneity or homogeneity, I'm talking about differences or sameness in education, experience, training, skills. So the second question is, do you want the team to be homogeneous or do you want the team to have heterogeneity? You have to answer that question. And I think that's largely driven by the task. Norms, I'm on 518. Norms are defined as unwritten standards of conduct. They're often developed by the group and enforced by the group. And every one of you belongs to 5, 10, 15, 25 different groups or teams, don't you? Social clubs, athletic organizations, sororities, fraternities, all kinds of different groups and clubs. Every one of your organizations has some norms. It has some unwritten standards of behavior. And it is the group that develops those standards and the group enforces them. And here's the obvious takeaway from that. If you're a member of the group and you don't conform to these norms, you're a deviant. You are not doing what we expect you to do. So here's what you have to do. You have to conform to these norms, these unwritten standards of behaviors, or we are going to sever you. We're going to ostracize you. We're going to cut you out of the group. And I'm not saying that they're good or bad or virtuous or ugly. I'm simply saying that groups develop and enforce norms. And you may find that you're not comfortable being in a group if you object to whatever those values are, but you also may realize that that group membership matters and you need to find out and you need to match up with those expectations. But the fact that norms are unwritten standards of behavior that are developed by the group and enforced by the group means that it's sort of a tacit knowledge. So now I want to talk a little bit about conflict. I'm on 524, or forgive me, 521. I'm going to suggest that in an organizational context, there are only two types of conflict, and I really think that this is a useful starting point for this part of the discussion. The two types of conflict are social conflict or cognitive conflict. If you and I are in a group, team, whatever, and we experience cognitive conflict, we're thinking men and we're thinking women and we disagree about something. Okay, that's healthy, that's functional. Let's talk through it. Let's craft the best solution, the best response to whatever this challenge is in front of us. So cognitive conflict is healthy. It's normal. It's even beneficial because we don't make stupid mistakes, because we discuss, debate, and decide. That's cognitive conflict. The other type of conflict is social conflict. That is deeply destructional. That is evil. It is. I mean, I know that sounds harsh. This is one of the very few things that I can talk about anywhere in the organizational sciences that is absolutely black or white. It's one thing or the other. Cognitive conflict is healthy. Social conflict is destructive and evil. Social conflict says that you, if you're engaging in that sort of behavior, you attack the person. In fact, it's often described as an ad hominem attack. That's Latin for attack the man. If I said to you, we're in some sort of a group discussion, some task, and I just stopped and said, you know, you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny. I mean, if that's meant to be good humor, we'll interpret it as that. But am I attacking the man? Look at every political campaign you have ever seen in your lives and will ever see for the next 75 or 80 years. Everybody attacks everybody else. It's sad, it's destructive, but it's everywhere. And of course, politics is so deeply dysfunctional. It really is. Oh my goodness. If there were a better system, we would adopt it, but none of us know of one right now. Better than a Republican form of government where we put someone in office, and if we're pleased with them, we retain them, and if we're unhappy, we vote someone else in. So my point is that conflict only comes in two flavors. Social conflict, which is destructive, evil, always. No limitations, no exceptions to that. Destructive, evil, always. Cognitive conflict is healthy. That's because you and I disagree. Well, that's good. So we discuss, debate, and decide. And whatever we do comes out better than what we had at the starting point. So conflict only comes in two flavors in an organizational setting. It's either social or cognitive. Attack the man, attack the problem. Pick one. I don't know where I got this, but I stuck a note in my lecture notes. I've read this somewhere recently. I foolishly did not put the citation in my notes. I hate that. But I read a study recently that said, I don't remember where, what industries, what people, what levels, the number of subjects. But I read a study recently that came out of an HR journal that said 98% of people in organizational settings report some form of incivility at work. 98% report that they've either witnessed or experienced some form of incivility at work. Oh dear. I'd like to meet the other two. So now, I want to close this conversation on 527 with what the authors call 5 conflict resolution styles or conflict handling styles. The first thing they say, this is one way to handle conflict, they say avoid it. Pardon me? How hard is that to do? If there's a problem, it has to be dealt with. What if your car is leaking oil, a lot of it? You just think, I'll just keep driving it. You will, until you put 5 quarts of oil on the pavement somewhere, and then the engine will seize, and that'll be about a $7,000 repair. I think to say that that is a conflict handling style is stupid. Perhaps there's a kinder word in there, but you have to deal with conflicts. You didn't necessarily create it, but there has to be a resolution. You can't just say, well, I'm going to pretend that doesn't exist. The second thing, they talk about being accommodative. If you had an opportunity to interact with me as a peer, as a colleague, as a coworker, you would find that on many, many disagreements that I am accommodative. If it's a matter of style, preference, accommodation, I am happy to respond to your needs or concerns. If you ever ask me to compromise on principles, I will spill my blood and yours before I do that. But my point is, to be accommodative suggests that sometimes it is just style or preference. Well, do it. If you can resolve a problem by being accommodative, why wouldn't you? The third thing they talk about, force. Okay, sometimes that's right, but I would urge you to use that very judiciously. When I say force, you have some dominant role. You possess power other people don't possess. And you say, all right, I've heard all your positions. Here's what I'm going to do. Whether you like it or not, it's irrelevant. There's a time to do that, but I really want you to be very thoughtful. I want you to do that relatively infrequently. I want you to be very judicious in terms of you simply exerting whatever power you have, what ability you have to dominate an outcome. That does not pay dividends. People are resentful, and resentment seems to me to have a very long memory. So again, force is a legitimate technique to resolve conflict, but I just urge you to be thoughtful in its use. The fourth thing that they talk about, compromise. Boo! No compromise. Compromise says that no matter what you do, the solution is maladaptive. You want one thing, I want another, and I give up something and you give up something. Okay, did my hands come together? This is not Bill Norton's opinion. This goes back 45 years. Kahneman and Tversky, Kahn, others. All compromise decisions are maladaptive. They don't solve the problem. You give up a little, I give up a little. We don't come together and accomplish something meaningful. So compromise is rarely a good technique to resolve conflicts or problems. The last one they talk about is, I would use the term collaborate, they use the term integrate. I don't think those are terms of art, but hands down, that's the best loved ones. Work with people collaboratively, seek out their opinions, their positions, understand why they're concerned or why they object, or perhaps why they're proposing a novel solution that you didn't think of. Collaboration builds trust, cohesion, you come to good decision quality. It is hands down the best way to resolve any conflict. So the authors present 5. Avoiding is stupid, accommodate sometimes work, force rarely. I would say compromise never, because it's always maladaptive. Collaborate always. I know those are my perspectives, but I hope I've made the argument that at least presents that to you in ways that are sensible, ways that you can use, ways that you can operationalize those techniques. So I think we're at the end of the trail for session, whatever this is. What session are we at? 19, we're that far along? My goodness. So here's the AV question, the attendance verification question. Certainly as it relates to sponsorships, what skill do I need to improve when it comes to me and people who sponsor me? That's it. We're done. Love you. Talk to you all soon.